Welcome to the Morning Glory Project, Stories of Determination. I'm your host, Betsy Graziani Fassbinder. Like in nature, we see determined flowers and vines clinging to life and seeking light. So are Morning Glory people. And in this podcast, I'll interview writers, activists, artists, entrepreneurs, survivors and thrivers, and trailblazers of all kinds. These are folks that have been determined to get over, under, around, and through the obstacles that face them, or to seize the opportunities that come before them. I find these people inspiring and amazing. I know you will too. Today, I'm ever so happy to do something here at the Morning Glory Project that is long overdue. And that is that I'm going to welcome my co-producer, Angela Washington, to the microphone. And today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about how we're coping with this COVID-19 phenomenon that's going on. Angela brings to the Morning Glory Project not only a host of amazing skills and talents and experience, but also a fabulous heart who craves inspiring stories and helps me find them. She comes from the world of journalism, starting her career in Monroe, Louisiana as a reporter for Gannett News Service and the News Star World, where she was honored with the Louisiana Press Association's Best Breaking News Coverage Award. She continued her work in San Francisco, where she worked in commercial post-production work, leading Clio Award-winning projects, and later as an executive producer in corporate promotions for companies including Nike, EA Sports, and Coca-Cola. In 2012, she hosted and produced her passion project, The Simple Truth. It was a live streaming talk show that focused on professional, personal, and spiritual balance, featuring guests such as Angela Alioto and Golden State Warrior Alvin Adels. Today, she turns her social media and event consulting company producing and promoting events for organizations and individuals doing work that she believes in and that makes the world a better place, particularly, and I know this to be true of Angela, that she focuses on seniors and other vulnerable people. She's a marathon runner, a frequent walker of San Francisco's hills, often with a pooch attached to her, and a proud mom of two amazing, successful adults. Angela, I'm so happy to have you on the microphone today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Betsy. This feels I've listened to your interviews all the time, and to be on the other end of the mic is so exciting for me. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, of course. Like I said, it's long overdue. And Angela, the reason we're doing this is that I wanted to talk with you because we've had so many conversations about what's going on right now, and we've tried to adapt the Morning Glory Project and other things that we're doing to the context in which we're living right now. And it's so weird. And here's my reality, and this is why we're having this conversation. I wrote a memoir a few years ago called Filling Her Shoes, and it's about I fell in love with a widower who had a young son who became my son. And during the course of living that, and certainly of writing the book, what I found is that things that I thought were opposites had to live side by side. Like, I was in grief for the loss of my son. There was sorrow, the loss of my son's mother, his first mother, but I was grateful to have this inherited family. We had joy and happiness, and then we had startling moments of shocking grief that was just awful. And those things had to live side by side. And I'm finding that in this COVID world, that's happening to us too, you and I.
Yes, absolutely. Things that we took for granted, little small things mean so much now. It's we were discussing this earlier. Human contact, touch, not being able to hug my friends, touch my friends. It's so hard to see someone that I know on the street and not walk up to them and greet them and hug them. I'm a hugger. I'm a Southern girl. I grew up in the South where it was a big thing. You showed your love. You know, air kisses. We had big old fat juicy hugs and kisses on the cheek and on the lips. And oh my God, I miss that so much.
I will never take the casual touch of friends for granted again.
It's incredibly hard um, to be away from that.
Well, and so to structure our conversation, because Angela and I love each other, so we could just chat forever. But to kind of structure our conversation, I was thinking about the simultaneity of these contradictory things living side by side, the hard things and what I'm calling the soft, sweet things. So I thought we would talk about what's hard. We just talked about one of those things, which is not touching friends, not having physical contact with, some of us are fortunate enough to have loved ones in our house. Some people may have people in their house that are driving them crazy. um, and some people are alone in their homes. And some people are out, if they're medical care providers, they're out touching people all the time, but probably feeling ambivalent about it. So we've talked about one thing that's kind of hard, which is not having the casual, lovely touch of friends and loved ones and grandchildren and all those kinds of folks. So we're going to talk about the hard stuff, the harder stuff, and the hardest stuff. And then we're going to switch to the soft, sweet stuff. How's that sound to you?
That sounds great.
So what other things have been hard for you? Not the hardest, but the hard stuff. We'll get to
Oh,
that.
you lose your routine. I have this, well, and it might go back to touch, but there's this wonderful little cafe in my neighborhood called Angel, and I work from home. My laptop is with me, so I'll go down to Angel. Nagam, who is the owner, greets me at the door with the most amazingly beautiful smile. And he gives me a big hug and shows me pictures of his twins.
Mm.
And he lets me take over his back room to work in. It's a quiet place. I have internet. I have his amazing food and coffee. I can't have that.
Yeah. So those little comforts that
Yes.
you lose, and also you talked about routine. Honestly, I mean, and I see it all over on social media. People have asked me, what day is it today? I always say it's Blur's Day because they're all blurring together. So that kind of sense of structure, and if you're not doing traditional work outside the home these days, which many of us are not, it's hard to keep track, much less the little comfort things that you're talking about.
Yes, going down there, getting that, seeing the twins, seeing his
Mm.
pictures, sharing that with him. I can't do that. And I've actually picked up my computer a couple of times and gone, I've got to go and see Nagam. But I can't go and see Nagam. And
Yeah.
I never thought that would be so incredibly hard and affect me so much.
Well, we humans, even those of us on the more introverted end of the scale, we're still social creatures, even if it's casual contacts like, well, that's a little more than casual because you've become friends with him. But even if it's just your grocery clerk or people like that. And now, of course, I'm getting more intimate with those folks when I do have to suit up and go to the store. It's a scary thing to do, but you have to sometimes. I've been thanking my grocery clerks because, and I'm not even going to take their presence for granted anymore. I'm just thanking them for their service like I would a military person because they're out in a war zone too.
They're in the front. They're on the front lines as well. Sutter Fine Foods is a little small neighborhood store that I'd go to from time to time. I, usually pass it by to go to Trader Joe's. But if you don't want to stand on line, you stop at Sutter. And I was checking out there, and I told the clerk, I said, "Thank you so much for what you do." And he looked at me. He says, "Oh my God, you're the first person to say that."
Really?
He said, "Everybody usually comes in here with an attitude, demanding to know where things are." He said, "Thank you for thanking me." And I teared up because I was so upset that people weren't appreciating what he was doing.
Mm.
It's hard out there. And I think people need to realize that the people who are on the front lines, all they want is a little respect and a little courtesy and a little, I appreciate what you're doing. That goes a long way.
It does. It does. The other thing that's been hard and again, we're not to the hardest yet, but to the harder things, the simplest things that one would do without even thinking are complicated now. Things like pumping your gas. You got to remember to wipe off the nozzle and doing those things. And it all sparks that little bit of fear in there. Like, oh my gosh, am I doing this adequately? Is this enough to protect myself and my loved ones? Everything trying to figure out how to order groceries online or to find toilet paper, for Pete's sake. Those things everything takes more effort than it usually does.
Going to the mailbox.
Because you live in an apartment building,
I
of
live in
course.
an apartment building, so I go to the mailbox with the gloves or Lysol wipe or to wipe my mailbox down before I get my mail.
Yeah. So, and these are just the little tiny tedious things. And, Angela and I are both of an age where we have adult children. We don't have little ones to be caring for. If I had to be thinking about getting diapers and baby food and all of that, I can only imagine, really compared to the lives of many, many people listening here and many people that I observe out in the world, my world is pretty easy. I live in a safe home. I have a loving partner. It's just the two of us. Our dog passed away a few months ago, so we don't even have to worry about our creature as much as we miss him. And our adult kids are taking care of themselves and to the degree that they're able. So I think about people who have so many other bigger worries than mine. Not that I'm not worried, not that it's not terrifying, because it sure as hell is. But I've been counting my blessings too, and being aware of how many privileges I have in a new way. Not that I'm not always aware of that, but I'm aware of it with a new facet now.
I agree. I see this man in the park, in Huntington Park, and I asked him. I said, "I see you here all the time." I said, "Are you eating? Are you, He says, "I eat sometimes." So
Mm.
I packed him a lunch. I packed him enough food, I thought, for 2 or 3 days. And as I spent some time in the park, he walked by with the empty bag and he said, "That was good." And I went, "Oh
Oh,
my God, he ate all of that." But who's to say when was the last time he had food? You know,
golly.
it's just.
And that's hard for folks. And Angela, I also know, I want to talk about our hardest moments because I want to tell the truth here. And I'll confess mine first. I live in California, as do you. You live in San Francisco, and I live just north of there. The day that Governor Newsom closed California, ordered the shelter in place thing. And not that I'm not grateful for that happen. I'm really glad, and we're so fortunate in California to have been spared some of the worst of this because of that strategy. But honestly, that was the day that it really hit me that this was bad, that this was going to be bad, and that it was going to be bad for a long time, and that we didn't know how bad it was going to get. And I went to the dark place. I had that night. I weep easily. I'm a crier. I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm sad. I cry when I'm mad, which really ticks me off. But I don't sob easily. And that night, I had the barking sobs. I started thinking about all the people that I could lose. I started thinking about how the things that we had saved for, planned for, weren't going to happen. I mean, I really went to the darkest possible place. I started thinking about that we might not have an America anymore, that we could disintegrate from the inside out. I really went there, and it was awful. It's an awful, terrible feeling when you get to that spot. What's your hardest?
Oh my God. Well, for me, um, I have a mom. My mom is my foundation. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's all right. We get to cry here.
My mom is my foundation, and she's in a nursing home. She has dementia, but sometimes she knows who I am. Sometimes we have these amazing visits where I hold her hand and she rubs my hand and
Mm.
I touch her cheeks and she's my mom again. And then sometimes she doesn't know me. But I've been locked out. I can't go to her. I can't touch her. I can't be with her. And then she was injured in the nursing home and had to go to CPMC. And I don't know if you know how it is for someone with dementia, but they may not know what's going on. But when you take them out of their environment, it's huge
It's
for
really
them.
And
And
unsettling.
I couldn't be with her no matter how I begged the hospital, no matter what they would let me be with my mother. I couldn't see my mother.
Yeah. And of course that's the sensible thing for them to do, but it's torturous.
And I knew that they were right. But all I my both my kids had to talk me down. I had put my boots on and gotten dressed, and my son's on the phone with my daughter telling her, she's going to get arrested. She can't break into a hospital. She's going to get arrested. Because I figured, hey, I've got the gift of gab. I figured I could talk.
You could talk your way in.
so not seeing her, not being able to provide her with support, and that killed me. All I wanted to do was just curl up in a knot and cry.
Yeah.
And it's still
well, it chokes you up even to talk about it. I know. And I'm not trying to torture you, making you talk about it, but I'm trying to record this because I know that other people are out there, and in between all of what I'm calling the tacticals and practicals, the stuff you got to do to keep yourself safe and healthy and supplied and communicating and connected and checking in with people and calling, all those tacticals and practicals. Then sometimes you're left with these moments of terror and sorrow and worry and frustration. And I think it's the not knowing how long. I think that's one of the things. A friend of mine used to always say, I can withstand pain of any magnitude as long as I know the duration. Just tell me how long it's going to hurt and I'll bolster myself for that. But when you just don't know, when it keeps unfolding, it's hard.
You have no idea. There's no end in sight, and there's no plausible end in sight, and not knowing and
not knowing when you're going to be able to hold your mama again and comfort her again.
I just it kills me. And I said there are days when I have to literally force myself to get up and function. I'm going to function today. And I have a list of things. I want to be productive, and I have all these things that I plan to do or get done. But Betsy, my brain, there are days when my brain just can't focus and it won't move forward.
Well, that's a side issue. We want to move to we've done our harder and hardest here. And I want to move to the soft because that's important too. And maybe this is the intro to that or the transition for it. But I saw, there's so many beautiful things that are opening up, seminars that you can go to for free and classes you can take and poetry jams you can listen to and all of the things that concerts and, artists that are opening their homes and playing music and dancing for us. There's so many things to take advantage of. It's beautiful. But honest to God, sometimes I'm just too tired to do it. And I thought, what the hell's wrong with me? This is a golden opportunity. Why don't I take it? And then I realized, this social isolation thing and the worry and the stress of it, it's exhausting. It's tiring. And we also need some solitude and some reflection and some quiet. So I want to take advantage of some of those things, but golly, I want to give myself a break and say, whatever you accomplish, it's gravy, honey. It's the gravy. It's not the requirement. You're not lazy. You're just, you're exhausted and you're stressed. And, and I just want to put out there that, to all those folks that are striving so hard right now to make their moments meaningful, that's great. But, take some rest too.
I agree with you. You need to rest. You need to take care of yourself. But I have to tell you, I did something that really helped.
Okay, so now we're moving to the soft. And by soft, what I mean is what softens this for you? What makes it easier?
Well, I volunteer with this organization, Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly. And of course, because of this, you can't go into homes or and take care of them, or sit with them like we usually do. So the organization gave me two elders to call, and you chat with them, just find out how they're doing, how they're coping. And I talked to this little old lady named Betty. This woman started uh, making up poems using my name, and we talked for an hour. She talked about. She goes, "So your name's Angela. Are you Italian?" And I said, "No, I'm African American." And she goes, "Oh, honey, let me tell you about when I wanted to get my hair braided. My African American friend wouldn't do it for me. She said, 'You're just too white.'" She- oh my God, this little lady was a jewel. I found myself walking away from that conversation, I think getting more entertainment from her than she could have possibly gotten from me.
Well, now, so that's kind of a cool thing. Well, first of all, what my listeners don't know about you and I do is that you live a life of service, particularly for elderly and vulnerable people. You're doing things for them all the time. So it's not surprising at all to me that you would do this during this time too. But isn't it interesting that it is in doing service for others that you find your own soft spot? You are a soft spot to them, but it's giving it to you too.
Oh, it was awesome. She was great. And then the gentleman that I talked to, he said, "Okay, now I'm not much for phones because my hearing's not good, but I'm hearing your voice and you have a nice voice. And I think maybe you probably look as good as you sound. So once this is over, you have to come and visit me. I want to see you in person." I said, "Are you flirting with me?" He said, "Honey."
Well, now I'll give you a soft spot for myself that's a little on the more introverted end, and that is that I've been trying to get out for a nature walk in a socially distant environment, far away from people, just so you know. But audiobooks have been my salvation. I've listened to some of the most exquisite stories. I listened to John Steinbeck's East of Eden, one of my favorite books of all time. But listening to it, I'd never heard it before. And I listened to Dutch House, and I listened to Liz Gilbert's The Signature of All Things. This is like a 700-page book, and honestly, I cried when it was over because I didn't want it to be to stop. And I've listened to more playful ones as well, but audiobooks have been a real. I can really get out of my head. I'm finding I'm a reader. I'm a voracious reader, but I'm finding that focusing on reading off the page with my eyeballs is hard. But audiobooks kind of take me away. So it's a nice little soft spot for me.
Oh, I love that.
What is the softer thing for you? What else helps you?
Getting outside, and I'm being good with social distancing. I wear my mask. I take my hand sanitizer. I'm not touching my face. But for me, I'm a dog walker, and one of my I walk this dog, beautiful older golden named Luca. I go to Luca's parents. His parents are elderly, so they don't get out. I walk in the door, and there's this big old 100-pound golden comes lumbering at me like the wind, and it's like he grabs me and he just sticks his head between my knees and loves me, and his tail is moving like the wind.
So he's giving you some of that touch, huh?
He's giving me my touch. This dog just absolutely adores me, and I adore him. And when I see him, my whole world changes. It's like the sun comes out even if the sun isn't out. We go to the park, and the other thing that's happening in the park, I'm seeing butterflies in the city again. I don't remember the last time I saw a butterfly in San Francisco.
Well, Mother Nature's claiming back some territory, isn't
Mother
she?
Nature's coming back. So I'm outside, I'm with him. We're playing leash pool, and he's we're playing with other pups, and I'm watching and noticing things. I've been in this city over 30 years, and I'm starting to see things that I never saw before because I wasn't taking the time to look at them.
Well, instead of being on the way to someplace, you're being in the place you are.
Yes, yes,
For me, so you said two things. It's certainly the love of this pup is in there, but also just being in nature has been so restorative. Looking for, and there's something about nature's perseverance that's so inspiring. For me, the softest is when I get to Zoom call with my family and see that they're healthy and safe. When I get to talk with a friend on the phone, we've gotten into this kind of texting world where we zip off our communications, but now we're taking the time to talk with each other. And that's one of the things that I really want to take from this whole ordeal that we're in. I think that it begs two questions, and one is, what kind of person do I want to be in this crisis? What kind of human being do I want to be before and during and after it? And also, what lessons do I want to take from it going forward? And one of them is, I have enough time to call people and talk with them again. I have enough time. I don't have to just zip off a text. I want to take that going forward. How about you? What are the softest things for you?
absolutely. I had an hour and 30-minute cup of coffee with my best friend from Roseville. She's sitting outside in her backyard with her husband and her two dogs, which I love to death. They're sitting around their fire pit. I'm sitting in my garden. We have an outdoor garden here, a courtyard garden. I'm sitting in my garden with my coffee, wrapped up in a blanket, and we're having coffee. And she's showing me the yard and her garden and all the beautiful stuff they've grown. And I get to talk to her husband. She takes the phone over, and I get to see my pooches. And
Well, and let me ask you this. I mean, I'm asking myself this, so this isn't a finger wag by any means, but you could have done that before COVID, right?
we
I mean,
could
and you can
have.
do it after.
Yes.
So the lesson there is, oh my gosh, I'm going to make time for those things.
We all that is a favorite phrase of everyone. Oh, I'll give you a call when I have time.
Well, a number of years ago, I make New Year's resolutions, but I only make them when they're as doable. And one of the things that I decided, this was about 5 or 6 years ago, I said I was going to give up the phrase "when things settle down," because they just never do. And if you're a busy, imaginative, creative person, or just a person with lots of responsibilities, things never settle down. They just never do. Well, right now, there's like a forced settling down. They'd settled, right?
They've
And we
settled.
have this time. So I want to remember that. I'll tell you the other thing. I'm going to be way more conscious of my waste. Like what the vegetables that I have thrown away, the things that I can make do with what's in my icebox instead of popping out the store every 5 minutes.
Or ordering some meal from a restaurant.
Yeah, I want to support our local restaurants, and I'll certainly do that. I love going out to eat and all that. But I was spending more money than we really should be spending, and if I was going to go back to my hard stuff, the financial fears right now are real.
Yes.
Not only the retirement monies that we've saved, but my income is reduced. My husband's income's gone. I mean, it's not easy for us and for lots, and we have it better than many, many, many. It's hard, and the financial worries are hard. But I look back and think, how many times do I waste? We have food in the icebox, and we say, "Oh, let's just go pick something up," and then I end up throwing away wilted lettuce and celery. And I really want to take that with me after and be more conscientious and less wasteful.
I've gotten better at planning meals. I will cook or make a big pot of something, and it's like, okay, we're going to eat this for a couple of days, and then I'm going to freeze it. I've
Exactly.
got I'm planning. And then I have a neighbor who works in food service. He's, totally lost all income. And I'm like, oh, I'll text him and go, are you there? Have you eaten? I made this. Are you interested? So I'll take him some food. Or a couple of neighbors, have seen that I've made cakes and they're like, can I get a slice?
Well, and I want to emphasize too for listeners, you are doing this in an extremely safe, socially distant way. You're not going over and socializing and handing cake over to
basically
people.
What I do is I'm cooking, doing everything with my gloves, and then I wrap everything in saran, and I'll put it in a plastic bag and hang it on my door, and they come by and grab it.
Well, Angela, one of my softest and most treasured spots is my conversations with you. And I'm so, so grateful to have you as a partner. You've been so far an invisible partner in the Morning Glory Project. And I want people to know that not only do you do the social media stuff, but you've brought me some beautiful people to talk to and to be guests on the program. And I'm so grateful that our paths crossed just as I was beginning to launch this program, and that you've brought so much to it. I will count my blessings many, many times when it comes to you and what you've brought to this little thing that I do. And I'm so grateful for you. So thank you so much. And thanks so much for being a part of this today. Stay safe, stay well. Your sorrow and the hard parts have to live side by side with the joy and the gratitude. And I saw a quote the other day that I want to kind of wrap things up with a little bit. It said that gratitude is the thing that makes what you have enough. And I've been looking around at even just the stuff in my home and the stuff in my icebox, and the what I have is enough. And I'm grateful for that. That's not true of everybody, but it's true for me.
I am so grateful to have you in my life. One of the things that I didn't have an opportunity to mention is that I get such inspiration from listening to your podcast and listening to your guests and what they've gone through, and those amazing interviews. Those hold me up. Those keep me up, Betsy. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for continuing this. And I want to thank you for being Betsy, for being you. You're amazing.
Okay, now we're going to make everybody sick now with all this mutual admiration.
I'm just speaking from the heart.
But I thank you. And I also want to thank the also invisible Jeremy Brisky, who does the editing and posts these podcasts, to Lisa Daly, who organizes everything on our website at themorninggloryproject.com, to Julie Valin, who has provided some of our graphics and the logo indeed for the Morning Glory Project, and to Eric Watley, who produced the original music that we start each episode with. So all of those invisible people, I count you. They're not invisible to me, but to listeners, and I want to thank them all. So blessings to you, Angela Washington. Thank you for today, and stay safe, darling.
You too.
In the middle of this sci-fi novel that we're all living through with the coronavirus and the stay-at-home orders and the strange rebellions going on around us, I'm so happy that I got to introduce you to Angela Washington. She has been such a beautiful partner to me in creating the Morning Glory Project, and you can see why. Her joy and her heart and her love just make her really special. I'm so happy to share her with you today. And I wanted to share not just the hopeful, upbeat, happy things, but the hard things too, because I know there's a bunch of you out there that are going through some pretty hard stuff, worried about a loved one in a nursing home, or perhaps you've lost someone already. Or you've got a loved one who's on the front line, as Angela does. Her son's a nurse, dealing with this in hospitals. Or perhaps you're living alone, and that's another kind of struggle too. Perhaps you have a health condition that doesn't let you even go out and get fresh air. So I hope that this little program has brought you a taste of the ups and the downs and the hards and the softs of this. And as I part today, I'll first thank you for listening to the Morning Glory Project and hope that you'll share this out with others if you've found comfort in it. But I also want to end with an extra bloom, kind of a fun one. And that is this. In my neighborhood, as is true in lots of Northern California neighborhoods, and I don't know how far it's going, but in my neighborhood at 8 p.m. each night, you can step out your door, the front or the back. In my case, the backyard is best because there's a big canyon behind my house. And people start to howl. They howl, and there's voices, there are sopranos and altos and tenors and basses. And then the dogs start to bark. And some people yip, and some people bring a big clang. But it's kind of a lovely show of unity. I know that in other parts of the world, they're stepping out onto balconies and giving applause. They're lighting lights and burning candles, putting teddy bears in windows, as a way to connect. So, as my goodbye on the Morning Glory Project, a little extra bloom for you, I'm just going to share just a moment of the Northern California howl. I hope that it inspires you to go out and bloom and find a way to connect to others. Thanks for listening.